And it was just hours ago that right here behind me, people were gathered at the county office building protesting this bill. They were here chanting, walking across campus saying, "We see you, we want the truth." Police tell us they responded to a call at 4:30 of a 1-year-old girl who was in a pool not responsive at this house. And it was right here, just where you see these utility trucks behind me, where a car drove up on the sidewalk earlier today and hit 3 people. Say the car went off the shoulder, went down in here and hit the ditch, and then flew up and hit this telephone pole. It's gotten bigger here since it started, and as you can see, it's in full swing here behind me. People are gathered saying it's time for the economy to reopen. Fire crews are still here trying to figure out exactly what happened here tonight. Today, the judge set strict requirements in order to allow the bishop to testify. Terry Dade says he's still not sure who to blame, but he did confirm that they overspent $30 million. Now, the breakdown of how the members were chosen: City Council chose 4, the Police Accountability Board Alliance recommended 12 for their 4 seats, and the mayor chose 1. Scala was arraigned last night and he pled not guilty. He's being held here at the Monroe County Jail. Either way, she says she hopes making this one lane will just make people stop and say, "Let's stop in Geneva." With the first signs of spring today, a lot of us are ready to get out there and plant that vegetable garden. In the city of Rochester, it's a requirement to shovel the sidewalks in front of your homes and businesses. And if you do get a chance to talk to the president today, what are you going to say to her?
First, I just want more transparency. I want to know why we don't have the people who mean the most to us, the people who have helped us the most. So that's really what I want to know. Why? How can we help? How can we get them back? And how can we continue to have a better EDI department?
All right, thank you so much, Jerry. And as I said, students here protesting the firing of Dr. Cephas Archie. So today he said they put in place new policies to make sure that supervisors really watch body camera footage more often, especially in situations where officers are using force. The Brighton Central School District will have grief counselors available for students at French Road Elementary School this weekend. One of its students was killed in an accident earlier this week when a driver hit pedestrians on Edgewood Avenue. Family is safe this morning after a large fire in Perrington early this morning. Crews say they were called to the home on New Chatel Lane around 12:30 this morning for the report of a garage fire. Rochester's media photographers are asking the Monroe County executive not to sign a bill that would make harassing a first responder a crime. The National Press Photographers Association sent a letter to Cheryl D'Onofrio, Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter, and a county attorney. The group calls it a violation of the First Amendment. P22 Type Foundry is a font-making company which converts historic fonts for digital download. It seems fitting their current home is the former office of Frederick Douglass's abolitionist paper, the North Star. The Rochester Police Department's Mounted Patrol Unit delivered some holiday cheer yesterday. A group of children got to visit the unit's barn to take Christmas Eve rides. Kathy White lost her 29-year-old son, Matthew, to suicide on October 29th. She says he was always a happy kid, but was dealing with a messy divorce and custody issues.
He just got to the point where he was just so frustrated and just, I think he broke, and he just couldn't take it anymore, and he took his life.
White says she and her husband didn't have a lot of money to pay for funeral services. She found a company online called Legacy. It offered to cover all costs for one low price. White says after she paid, the issues began.
Like, after they got our money, they didn't care. You know, they just wanted, they got their money, they, do their stuff whenever they felt like doing it, and all the stuff that they told me, they didn't follow through with.
She says she had a hard time reaching someone when she called, and oftentimes they wouldn't call her back. White says they told her Legacy itself handles everything. But she says instead, the company partnered with a separate funeral home and crematorium. White told us there were also issues with the death certificates and delivery of her son's remains.
They made me believe that they took care of everything.
After receiving White's call, News 8 did some research. Legacy's profile on the Better Business Bureau shows an F rating. The profile says Legacy has also operated under the name Heritage. It also says it operates out of southern Colorado. White thought it was local. We reached out to the chief operating officer of Legacy, Alexandra Gray. Gray tells us they have offices in both Colorado and Texas. She says they do work all over the country and even own some funeral homes. Whether it's Legacy or an outside funeral home dealing with the remains depends on the state. The vice president from the BBB's Southern Colorado office says they've gotten complaints similar to White's.
There's no license. They failure to respond to the complaints and resolve complaints. There's been government actions against this company, advertising issues, failure to be transparent about ownership, location, product, and services offered. Again, kind of going back to what is their structure and like what truly falls underneath them.
Rodriguez also says the BBB hasn't found a physical address or talked to anyone from the company in person. White says she doesn't want anyone else to go through this.
I just want them held accountable. I want the companies that they dealt with to know that they weren't a reputable place to be dealing with.
17 years after a brutal attack, an Orleans County man is facing a charge of murder. David Ricks has been serving 20 years in prison for assaulting Devontae Boston, who was just 4 years old at the time. Prosecutors say Ricks was living with Devontae's mother in 2002 when he slammed the child to the ground and didn't take him to the hospital for days. Devontae sat in a vegetative state until he died in 2017, and now prosecutors are calling his death murder. Kayla Green talked with Devontae's family about all this.
Devontae was my first kid, first son, first kid to born, my mother's first grandchild.
But because Wilbert Boston's son Devontae was attacked when he was 4, Wilbert had to watch him live in a vegetative state for 15 years until he died 2 years ago.
His life was taken away from him at an early age, and he just didn't get to grow up. He didn't get to live life.
Orleans County District Attorney Joseph Cardone says the years Devontae did get weren't easy.
He lived a very difficult life. He was unable to show any emotion or communicate or move at all during those years. And
now the man Cardone says is responsible may have to pay. Devontae's aunt Karen Boston says after hearing the news, she slept better than she has in years.
He took life away from my brother's first child, my first nephew. He didn't get a life with us, so why should David live the rest of his life out?
Justice is what Karen and Wilbert want.
I promised him that I was gonna fight to the end. I promised him I was not gonna give up.
I was there to the end when he passed away. I held his hand all the way until death and said goodbye, because I wanted him to know that I loved him that much,
Andrea Roman recently got the bad news that her grandfather had died of COVID-19. He was living here at the Hurlbut Nursing Home, and she says the news was very sudden.
I got a phone call from my aunt saying that my grandfather had passed away.
Andrea Roman says that call left her heartbroken and shocked.
We had been getting updates weekly since they stopped visitors, and every time they gave an update, they said that his health was fine.
But on Friday, Roman says the nursing home left a voicemail for her aunt saying her grandfather wasn't doing well. Roman says by the time her aunt called back 4 hours later, he was dead.
The day after he passed and she was finally able to talk to his social worker, she informed us that he had become sick the day prior to his passing, and nobody communicated with us that he had symptoms.
Roman says they were also told he was never tested for COVID-19 even after he died, but the virus is listed as his cause of death.
They didn't give any reason why, and we were just like in shock and disbelief. A lot of us are angry.
Dr. Michael Mendoza recently called for a state investigation into Hurlbut's reporting of cases.
I feel like they should be investigated, so does the rest of my family. I feel like as soon as a resident is showing symptoms, they should be contacting family, just because they're saying it's happening so quickly.
She also says Hurlbut staff was supposed to keep her family updated on cases going on in the nursing home. She says they found out about one about a month ago, but she found out about others from news reports after her grandfather had died. She says she's glad the state is putting regulations in place. In Brighton, Kayla Green, News 8.
It just, tasted great.
Wegmans Country Potato Bread. Karen Iglesias says that's the only food her son Alan has eaten consistently for 12 years.
So he eats about 2 loaves of the bread per day.
There is 12 slices in each, so it's 24 slices of bread every day.
Before you even touch it, you could tell the difference, right? Just by smelling it.
Mm-hmm.
Alan has a severe feeding disorder, meaning he has a heightened sense of smell and taste, which prevents him from eating anything hot or cold. He also can't try new foods and went through feeding therapy for 4 years. He reverted back to just eating this bread.
If I actually, touched it or tasted it, I would tell them.
It feels different from the other breads?
Yeah.
When Wegmans called Karen last week and told her they're going to stop carrying the bread, she reached out for help.
Let's put a post up online, on Facebook. Went viral, I guess, because before we know it, we had over 400 loaves of bread. From Syracuse to Buffalo, from Virginia to Binghamton, from people were like, we got bread, we're gonna mail you bread.
Some of this bread coming from the Wegmans were the family shops. The manager tells us people have been coming in the past few days asking, where's Alan's bread, and then buying up tons of it to give to him. They're calling themselves Alan's Army.
A lot of total strangers, just came up and says, we have a kid we have our own child with the challenges eating, and we understand, and they went way out of their way to do that, and to see that kind of support from your community is just very humbling.
Store manager Amy Paisley says Eastway Wegmans is putting aside and freezing 100 loaves for Alan. They're also working to help him find a new favorite bread.
Our team knew we needed to help him. We needed to find a way to buy them time so that Alan could find something else, another bread or something that could be a replacement for the potato bread. And
These people doing a great job, Lo, and I just want to thank them for, collecting bread for me before it stops.